So if you were just, you know, trying to get your $100 per contract goal for the day, that would have been okay. But where would your stop be? Okay. No bueno. Trying to learn a second language. Get a leg, retrace. We got buyers here, and we got buyers here. If the sellers can overtake the buyers here and here, you'd go for a ride. Is that a Head and Shoulders? No, that's right, my computer's. It says disconnected. How did I get disconnected from the market? Oh boy. It's not easy being me. Now it says connected. Okay. Oh, the computer, because I was talking about putting it out to pasture and going to getting another one. Yeah. Now I understand. Okay, so no big deal on soybeans. Couple points. And then the final market, and we're out of here. Crude. Okay. Well, let me just say this. This happens to be a 30-minute chart. It could be an hour, it could be a day, or a week. When there's a bearish cross, it typically will lead to lower prices. When there's a bullish cross, CFMA1 gets above the BBC, it will typically lead to higher prices. Trading's not easy, but it can be simple. And there's going to come a point in time, if you stick with it, okay, you're going to have a grin on your face like Timothy Leary when you see that, when that simplicity thing starts to glow in the dark. Yep, you're going to get a real kick out of that. And then you're going to try to explain it to people in your life, you know, at the next family reunion. And they're going to look at you with a blank stare. And they're going to talk to the rest of the family about if they should try to, you know, do an intervention, get you help. Okay. Crude. Last night on the crude, we said to consider buying 65.80 if you got the chance. I mean, if you're not at the store or watching TV. 65.80, yeah, okay. And, you know, because there was a little pullback here on this candle, maybe you didn't get this. So from 65.80 to 66.30, $500 per contract available. Now, we don't get out at the high or the low because we trail a stop. So that means while there was $500 per contract available on the table, you got, of that 500, you got wherever your stop was. Now, if your stop was still down here, below the low of this candle, which is not a bad idea, hint, hint, then you actually, you know, you probably still ended up getting, you might have got more than here if you were trailing too loosely. Just saying. All right. Is it hot in here or is it just me? All right. I appreciate you guys being there for me. I needed some company. I needed somebody to sit with me and just spend some time. And you guys have fulfilled that today in a very graceful way. And I do want you to know that I appreciate it. Looks like we're going to have a rule breaker kind of week. Well, it's not a rule, but It appears that we could close. I mean, I have seen this thing run 20 points to get below the zone going into the close. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying I have seen it. So I'm not going to rule anything out. But right now we are well above. We're 10 points above the highest weekly trading zone. Okay? We came up earlier in the week, touched it to the tick, down to the tick. Didn't quite make it that time. And now that. Off of this double bottom. Well, why is a double bottom more important than a single bottom? Well, would you rather sit on a stool? I get this isn't going to make sense, but would you rather sit on a stool that has 2 legs or 3 legs? I'm going to go with the 3. But so now, support and resistance is one thing, and people always ask, the more times you hit that resistance, does the resistance get stronger or does it start to crumble away? There's no good answer to that question. Because each time is unique, and it's going to do what it's going to do based upon who is in the market. Are there more buyers? Are there more sellers? I mean, don't try to build systems and strategies and methodologies off of things that can't be known. If your methodology or strategy embraces the fact that when you enter the trade, it meets a certain set of criteria that you've established, and you believe that that gives, and you fully believe that, and you've tracked it, it does give you a definable edge in the market, right? I hope that resonates, because I'm gonna leave you with that for the weekend. If your methodology setup embraces the fact that although your trade that you just entered, long or short, meets all the criteria you've established 100%, you still don't know what the outcome of that trade is going to be. Well, then that's just gambling. No, it's not. Because you're only taking the low risk, high probability trade setups. And if it truly gives you a definable edge in the market, then over the larger sample size, you should have more positive points than you have negative points. If you don't have a definable edge in the market. Now, is it operator error, or is it methodology error? Or do you just need a larger sample size? That rogue trader that tanked the markets quite a few years ago on the, well, it was billions of dollars, and it was uncovered that he had been making these trades and somehow hiding them from the bank, Societe Generale, for a long time. And he was upside down like $2 billion. They discovered it on a Sunday night when Globex opened, and they began to try and unwind the trades. And then, of course, you know, you have a few hours of trading in futures on Monday, Martin Luther King Day. But when 95% of those who consider themselves to be traders came to work Tuesday morning, see, those of us that trade futures on a Sunday night, you know, or on a Wednesday morning at 3 a.m. on the London, we're the fringe element, okay? We're not normal people. Most people don't even know what we're doing exists. So Tuesday morning, when the world showed up for work to trade, the Dow was down 500 points that day. But guess what? If they had not discovered what he had done, and if they had not generated that sell-off by trying to unwind $2 billion worth of trades, by Wednesday afternoon, the bank would have been, if they'd have left his positions unmolested, the bank would have profited $2 billion. B as in boy, $2 billion. They might not have even sent him to jail. He got like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, but for some reason he only had to serve like 3 to 6 months. I'm not saying he should have had to serve more. Well, you know, it is a lot of money, and it wasn't his money. But and ultimately he was right, but that doesn't change the fact that he didn't have the authority to place those trades. What fascinates me is, I mean, banks, you know, they got to balance their books. Well, even as a kid, I worked in a little country store. We had to balance the books to the penny every night. And so these banks, you know, with their billions and trillions, have to balance their books every night. How do you hide? I mean, it costs $500 to buy one S&P E-mini contract. Okay, but you got to allow for overnight trading. So call it $5 grand. Okay. How many times is $5 grand going to $2 billion? I mean, those are some staggering positions. How is it possible no one noticed? Hey, have you seen my $2 billion? I know I had it like not an hour ago. It was, oh, it's in my other pants. Whoever his boss was, I think, should have accompanied him in that cell, you know, for those 3 to 6 months, because somebody was asleep at the wheel. This kid was sharp, you know. Yeah, he had a big drawdown, but and he had no way to cover it. He had no choice but to ride it out. Okay. I know what it means when your eyes glaze over like that. You're not fooling me. Good word for the day, and then I'm out of here. Who am I kidding? I'm not going anywhere for days. I got to sit here and work, but I'm not going to bore you anymore. All right? Till Monday. Oh, I'll be actually Sunday night. You guys relaxing, watching the wonderful world of Disney, and I'm in here just slaving over those zones. Man, y'all sure got it good. I'm happy for you. Good word for the day. Come on. There we go. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. Proverbs 3:9. I think we probably all know exactly what that means. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruit of all your increase. Sometimes you get paid on a Friday. That's back when people actually got paid and it just didn't magically appear in their bank account. You had to go down, sign the back of the check, and you know, all that stuff. Now, a lot of people will go cash the check. They pay the insurance, they pay the rent, they give mama $40 for groceries, and they got $5 left. Oh God, I'll try to catch you next week. You know, you feel guilty Sunday morning in church because you know you didn't do what you were taught to do, and that's not what this scripture is talking about. Scripture says when you cash that check, God gets his 10th. Not that he needs it. He likes obedience more than sacrifice. You pay him his 10%. Let the first check you write be to God, you know, to whatever church, house of worship you attend. And then you pay the cell phone, and then you pay the electricity, and then you give mama grocery money, and you don't know how it's going to work out doing the math backwards, but try it a few times. God even says, on this one thing, you can trust me. On this one thing, you can test me. He challenges us in Malachi to test him and see if he won't be faithful. Multiply what we put in. Make what we have left go further somehow, supernaturally. That's what it is. It's supernatural. It really is. Solomon writes, and I guess he was, other than the sage of Omaha, the richest guy that ever lived. I don't know who's the richest guy now. Solomon writes, honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase, so your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. Proverbs 3:9 through 10. From a historical perspective, the whole thing about the first fruits, too, means that you always bring God your best. Okay? When it was time to go to sacrifice the lamb, oh, God, I'm glad we don't have to do that anymore. Okay? Some people would try to slide by bringing in the old sick crippled lamb, right? The one that was just, eating grass, he wasn't doing anybody any good. We'll sacrifice this one. No. God says, you bring me your best. Best in your barn, best in your vineyard, best in your fields, best in your paycheck. Again, not because he wants you to sacrifice anything. He just wants to see, how obedient you'll be. And most men and women are pretty good at turning over their heart and their marriage and their children. I just give it all to God. But boy, do you keep a grip on that wallet. We get very attached to our dead presidents. And so when God's saying, hey, you can test me on this, he's actually testing you, isn't he? To see if you'll be obedient. And if you'll be obedient, there is reward. I know that there's no tooth fairy, right? But that money always showed up under the pillow, didn't it? I just know that when I began to be financially faithful to God, as I had been taught as a child to do, it's like I stopped. My whole concept in dealing with money stopped. I mean, it changed drastically. And I had been chasing money all my life. And it was like, mercury. I couldn't get a grip on it, I mean, I always had enough. I made lots of money as a salesman, running sales companies, doing various things, But it's like I had a hole in both pockets. But as soon as I started making God the priority, bringing him the first fruit of my labor, suddenly I wasn't worried about it anymore. And some would say, well, of course you weren't. Look at your bank account. That's why you weren't worried about it. I don't know. You're saying the egg came first. I'm thinking the chicken did. So try it. You might like it. All right. The people who heard Solomon's words lived off their land and their livestock. Whenever they reaped a harvest or birthed new cattle, they'd take the first sheaf or the firstborn calf to the temple and offer it to the Lord. These were called first fruits. By doing this, they acknowledge that everything I have comes from God and belongs to God. And everything I'll need for the future depends upon God's goodness to me. There is no more important money management principle that you'll ever hear than this. Give God your first fruits, not your leftovers. That blind, crippled lamb, leave him at home. All right? Businessman Arthur DeMoss, we all know Artie, right? So I find it amusing when they slip in these unknown names, like, we all used to hang out together. Was a spiritual giant and benefactor who gave millions to God's work and left behind a foundation to carry on his legacy. I've always said that's how I want to go, leaving a legacy. We'll see. DeMoss said that to be successful, you should give God the first dime out of every dollar, the first hour out of every day, and the first day out of every week. And I know there's, debate over this, but biblically Sunday's the first day of the week. Well, he worked 6 days and then he rested. So it's day 7. I can argue both sides of that, so let's just not. Okay? You get the point. First dime out of every dollar, first hour out of every day, prayer and meditation, and the first day, Sunday, out of every week. That's a good recipe for life. You ask, does that mean God won't love me if I don't tithe? No. And the reason I say no is because there's nothing you can possibly do to earn God's love. You certainly aren't going to impress him, with 10% of your paycheck. Again, it's an obedience thing, all right? So, God will still love you. There's nothing you can do to earn his love. However, giving back to him willingly. There's a scripture that translates God loves a hilarious giver. And I've felt that. I've experienced that. I've been in places, Mexico and Africa, different places where I was able to give into someone's life or into their home or into their family to a degree that it literally changed the quality of their life. I couldn't do that here in America because $20 only goes so far, right? But there are places where $20, it's actually serious money, feed a family of 4 for a month kind of thing. And it's not the dollar amount. It's not the number of commas or zeros or any of that. It's just that feeling of knowing that you're obedient to God, you bless someone, their quality of life is going to be better, if only for, whatever period of time that 20 lasts. But it's a place I like to live. I would like to live all the time, but you know how that goes. Now, it has been said to me on more than one occasion that the only reason it was said about my wife and I, that the only reason we listened to God and followed his direction and built that orphanage was because it made us feel good. It made us feel better about it. Was somebody trying to put us down, right? I said, well, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I was being completely selfish as I wrote those checks and did that work and everything. Maybe it was simply because it made me feel okay about Dwayne. I was able to look myself in the eye in the mirror. Even if that's true, See how many thousands of kids have lived there and been loved there and been educated there and have grown up to be husbands and fathers and wives and mothers, and because I'm selfish. Okay, I wear that insult like a proud badge of courage. Think about it. Now, this is a person that was really trying to get down on me and discourage, us. You guys don't know what you're doing. You don't have the education. I'm a social worker. I went to NYU and I studied behavioral whatever. Okay. When was the last time you built an orphanage? Well, see, I didn't build it. God built it. My wife and I were just instruments. We were vessels. He used us. He told us to do something, and we actually did it. And he smiled. And he's still smiling 18 years later. Obedience, not sacrifice. We never had to sacrifice a thing for the work he did through us. Now, there's many of our own works, vain imagination stuff, that we sacrificed a whole lot for. And 18 years later, there's no sign of that thing, whatever it was. Fingerprints of God are hard to miss. All right. Giving back to God willingly shows him an obedient heart and how much you really love him. Because, wherever your heart is, not your head, not your backside, where your heart is, that's where your treasure is. Think about it. Love you guys. Weekend, the CFRN community rule number 24 says that you, my friend, must spend quality time with your family this weekend. No more putting it on. And of course, as always, I'll see you in church on Sunday. Yeah? Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with his mercy and with his grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading Emini Futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.